Steven Spielberg, a director known for turning actors into legends, has also been pushed to his limits by the very stars he cast when Robert Shaw's relentless provocations on Jaws nearly derailed filming, and Julia Roberts' breakdown on Hook forced Spielberg to publicly call out her unfortunate timing. These weren't just creative disagreements, they were battles that left scars on Hollywood's most iconic films. The title says it all. These are the top 6 actors Spielberg hated working with the most. Careers changed, movies nearly fell apart, and relationships shattered on some of cinema's biggest sets. But what made these clashes so explosive? And how did they alter the course of film history? Robert Shaw walked onto the Jaws set with a reputation, and within days, he lived up to it. Carl Gottlieb, co-writer and on-set chronicler, called Shaw the film's instigator, a man whose appetite for provocation bordered on sport. Shaw thrived on disruption, targeting cast and crew alike. But it was his running feud with Richard Dreyfuss that sent ripples through the production. While Spielberg had braced himself for the mechanical shark's breakdowns, it was Shaw's volatility that proved the real test of nerves. Behind closed doors, Gottlieb's memoir details Shaw's relentless taunts. He would dare Dreyfuss to perform stunts, mock his acting, and toss out barbed remarks with an actor's timing. The director, barely 27 and fighting to keep the film afloat, found himself not just wrangling special effects but refereeing personalities. Shaw's drinking became legend, so much so that during the filming of Quint's famous Indianapolis monologue, he arrived so inebriated he had to be carried off the boat. Production screeched to a halt, and Spielberg called a wrap for the day. But Shaw wasn't just antagonistic. He was cunning. Late that night, racked with regret, he phoned Spielberg, anxious to know if his behavior had sunk the film. "Did I embarrass you?" he asked at 3 a.m. Spielberg's reply, "Not fatally." This uneasy truce summarized their dynamic. A young director forced to lead by patience, not power. Shaw delivered the scene, sober, unforgettable, the next day. The tension between actor and director never fully broke into open conflict, but the scars of management lingered. For Spielberg, Jaws wasn't just a monster movie. It was a masterclass in handling the unpredictable, setting the stage for every star clash to come. The set of Hook, in the spring of 1991, was supposed to be a playground for childhood magic. Instead, it became a pressure cooker, and at the center stood Julia Roberts. Tinkerbell by contract, tabloid headline by circumstance. Production days stretched well into triple digits, far beyond the original schedule, as a high-profile Hollywood breakup unfolded in real time. Roberts and Kiefer Sutherland had called off their wedding the night before filming was supposed to wrap. Personal heartbreak collided with a movie already $60 million into the red and 40 days over schedule. Crew members started whispering about Tinker Hell, a nickname that stuck for all the wrong reasons. The role itself isolated her. Roberts spent weeks acting on green screens, responding to cues from technicians instead of castmates. Alone on oversized sets, she had little to anchor her except Spielberg's direction, at a time when neither star nor director had patience to spare. The loss of Roberts' engagement became front-page news, with paparazzi crowding the lot and rumor mills spinning out of control. According to Vanity Fair, Roberts was blindsided by the swirl, later saying, "I was reading in the paper that I didn't have a job, that there was some kind of problem on set. It just became absurd." Spielberg, who had already called Hook one of the most stressful shoots of his career, stopped hiding his frustration. In a 1992 interview for 60 Minutes, he didn't sugarcoat the dynamic. "It was not a great time for Julia and I to be working together." Asked if he would work with her again, he smiled and dodged, "This is a 60 Minutes question, isn't it?" But Roberts felt the sting. She told Vanity Fair that she was stunned to see Spielberg hesitate to defend her in public, calling it the first time she had ever felt betrayed by a director. Off-screen heartbreak, on-set delays, and a candid exchange of wounds. Hook's chaos left both star and director with scars they never cared to revisit. Megan Fox was everywhere in the summer of 2009. Red carpets, magazine covers, and at the heart of it all, the Transformers franchise. But when cameras rolled for the third installment, Fox was suddenly out. What happened next became one of Hollywood's most dissected power struggles, fueled by a single incendiary interview and a battle of egos with far-reaching fallout. It started with a quote that ricocheted across entertainment headlines. In Wonderland magazine, Fox compared director Michael Bay to history's most notorious dictator. He wants to be like Hitler on his sets, and he is. The industry's reaction was instant. For a director already known for chaos and control, the comparison crossed a line. Behind closed doors, the production moved fast. According to Bay in a 2011 GQ interview, Steven Spielberg said, "Fire her right now." Spielberg, as executive producer and industry legend, rarely weighed in on casting decisions. But Bay's claim put the blame squarely on the highest authority in the room. Fox's reps rushed into damage control, insisting her exit from Transformers. Dark of the Moon was her own decision. But industry chatter, and insider journalism from Deadline, Variety, and GQ, said otherwise. Crew members joined the fray, posting an open letter on Bay's website that painted Fox as ungrateful and unprofessional. Shia LaBeouf, her co-star, didn't mince words. She started talking our captain, which you can't do. Spielberg, when pressed by Entertainment Weekly, denied Bay's version. That's not true. That didn't happen. But the narrative stuck. The Hitler comment became legend, invoked on set as a cautionary tale about Hollywood protocol. Fox herself, years later, admitted she'd been fired, calling it absolutely the low point of my career. In interviews, she reflected, "All I had to do was apologize, and I refused." The fallout was swift. Fox was replaced by Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, and production never skipped a beat. For Fox, the cost was real. Blockbuster exile, tabloid infamy, and a career forced off the rails by a single phrase. For Spielberg, the message was clear. Executive power in Hollywood can turn on a dime, and words carry consequences that not even giant robots can outrun. Shia LaBeouf did not waste words when it came to Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. In the years after the film's release, he called his own performance unforgivable. But he did not stop there. LaBeouf directed his sharpest critique at the man behind the camera, telling Variety in 2016, "You are not meeting the Spielberg you dream of. You are meeting a different Spielberg who is in a different stage in his career. He is less a director than he is a company." Suddenly, the most bankable young star in Hollywood had turned on his cinematic idol, exposing the divide between old-school auteurism and the blockbuster franchise machine. The public fallout began long before social media outrage hit full volume. Back in 2010, speaking to the Los Angeles Times, LaBeouf said, "I feel like I dropped the ball on the legacy that people loved and cherished." Spielberg's reaction was classic corporate Hollywood. According to LaBeouf, he got a private rebuke. There is a time to be a human being and have an opinion, and there is a time to sell cars. For Spielberg, the director's chair had become something else, a brand protector, not an artist in the trenches. For LaBeouf, that shift was personal. He wanted risk, not product placement. Crystal Skull's notoriously divisive reception only widened the gap. LaBeouf's candor set off shockwaves in the industry. No rising star in Spielberg's orbit had ever gone this public, this fast, with their regrets. The rift was not just about a movie. It was about two generations clashing in full view. Spielberg, once the rebel who upended studio rules, now embodied the system he had helped build. For LaBeouf, eager to burn bridges and forge his own path, the collaboration became a cautionary tale that honesty would come back around. In 2016, LaBeouf went on record with Variety, offering something rare in Hollywood. "I mess up sometimes, you know. I probably could have gone lighter on Spielberg. That was probably something I should have backed off of." Too late for Crystal Skull's reputation, and too late for another shot at Indy. In Dial of Destiny, Mutt Williams is gone, a silent casualty of a feud that spilled out past the credits, leaving both actor and director changed by the fight. By the time Close Encounters of the Third Kind entered pre-production, Richard Dreyfuss was already working every angle. Instead of waiting for a formal offer, he turned Spielberg's office into a one-man campaign headquarters, dropping in, pitching himself, and dismissing competitors with one-liners. "Al Pacino's crazy," he'd announce. Hackman's too old. The campaign went beyond heckling. Dreyfuss leaned on his history from Jaws, insisting only someone with a child's perspective could make the leap Spielberg's script demanded. The pitch stuck. Spielberg, after months of lobbying and pointed jokes, handed Dreyfuss the lead, proof that persistence and persuasion could rewrite any director's casting plans. Tom Cruise and Steven Spielberg's partnership hit a wall in 2005, right as War of the Worlds took over the box office and Cruise's public defenses of Scientology eclipsed the movie's own spectacle. Paris press conferences turned tense, with Cruise waving off any questions about religious influence and, by multiple accounts, frustrating his director in the process. Behind the scenes, Spielberg watched as the conversation shifted from filmmaking to controversy, and the fallout was immediate, a freeze that lasted nearly 2 decades. For 18 years, their creative alliance lay dormant, untouched by new projects or reunion rumors. Then, at the 2023 Oscar nominees luncheon, everything changed in a moment that echoed through industry headlines. Spielberg was caught on video, grinning beside Cruise, and telling him, "You saved Hollywood's ass, and you might have saved theatrical distribution." Seriously, Maverick might have saved the entire theatrical industry. After years of cold distance, Spielberg's words rang with genuine admiration, a public acknowledgement that even the biggest riffs can yield to respect, and that cinema's survival sometimes depends on the very stars who once drove directors apart. Across nearly 50 years and 6 major actor conflicts, this documentary has shown that Steven Spielberg's most challenging collaborations often unfolded in public view, documented in production notes, interviews, and press reports. From Robert Shaw's combative presence on Jaws, confirmed in Carl Gottlieb's 1975 memoir, to Julia Roberts' personal crisis on Hook, documented in Vanity Fair and 60 Minutes, Spielberg faced early tests of leadership. As his influence grew, so did the stakes, seen in Megan Fox's firing from Transformers, a decision described in GQ and denied by Spielberg, and Shia LaBeouf's public critique, followed by his 2016 apology, as reported in Variety. The high-profile rifts with Richard Dreyfuss and Tom Cruise, covered in memoirs and Oscar luncheon footage, reveal a pattern. Tension sometimes gives way to reconciliation, but not always to clarity. Some details, like the full decision-making behind Fox's exit, remain contested. What these cases confirm is Spielberg's evolving approach to conflict, from de-escalation to executive authority. Documented history shows that even the most respected directors must navigate the pressures of stardom, studio politics, and personal belief. The evidence remains. In Hollywood, creative genius and conflict often go hand in hand.